We're going to travel back in time and place to Mims, Florida. Do you know where Mims is? I had never heard of it. Yeah. It's this tiny little, small little town just east of Titusville outside of Orlando.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
you know where that is. Yeah. You've probably driven through it on the way to the beach, honestly. It's like right.
Well, yeah, because you got to drive 45 minutes to the beach if you're living in Orlando.
Exactly. It's like, if you look at the map, it's like Orlando, Mims, the coast. So you just go bloop right over.
Okay.
Yeah. So today I'm going to tell you about the assassination of two pioneer activists and some of the earliest leaders in the civil rights movement in the United States. Harry and Harriette Moore. Have you ever heard of them?
No, but it's adorable how close their names are.
I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, their names are so
Because I'm assuming they're siblings, right? That wasn't like a coincidence.
Their husband and wife.
Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
That's adorable.
Their husband and wife. Mm-hmm. So we're going back to Mims, Florida. So a small little wooden home surrounded by citrus trees in a place of teaching, laughter, and quiet revolution. These two wrote letters late at night. You can imagine them sitting around a table, right? These were membership lists, voter tallies, pay equity petitions. So the activism that they contributed to was an extension of their love for each other, for their students, and for their community. Harry T. Moore said in 1951, "We have dedicated our lives to the fight for freedom. We have no regrets." So just an interesting note here that I am just going to suspend out there for everybody. I don't know why. I cannot figure out any reasoning behind this. So here you go. There is a PBS documentary by the name of Freedom Never Dies. And it is the story of Harry and Harriette Moore. And it has been removed from every library that I could find it at. I have a library card. There are links to multiple different places. The way that this documentary exists in the ways of access to education and I'm going to say entertainment, but it's considered an education. It's educational content
material,
right?
Yeah,
material, and you can access it through the library. And if you go online and you try to find it, it's like, okay, it's there, it's here, it's here, it's here. But every link you click on, page not found, the link reroutes you to the library page. You can't access. The only lead I have, so I didn't get to watch this documentary. The only lead I have is that you can buy the rights for it for $325 on a specific website, the educational website. And then there was also another lead that I found that you can reach out to UC Berkeley for a copy on VHS.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
When was the documentary made?
The early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just going to
Do you know when it disappeared?
That. No, I can't find.
I'd be very curious.
That's why I'm floating this, right?
Yes.
Just a giant question mark there, right? I can't even find. There's an intro. Like you can watch the intro of it. That's a minute long.
Did you look on YouTube and everything? It's nowhere.
Yeah. I looked everywhere. Yeah. So maybe this would require some sort of whatever the ethical version. Can we get an ethical version of the dark web where everything that's banned, it's the banned stuff or the things that are not accessible but are for the greater good of society? Can we get? Does that exist? If so, hit me up privately. So we're going to talk a little bit about.
Did you look? Okay. Did you look on the service Canopy?
Oh yeah.
The streaming service Canopy? Because that's where allegedly it is.
It's not
the one
there.
place.
It's definitely. I mean, I made an account. I made 3 separate accounts on 3 separate platforms, and it's not there. It's just so interesting to me that the SEO still exists, that it's on these websites, and you click on them, and then they're not there. So the back end stuff shows that at some point, this documentary was accessible through PBS.
So weird.
And that the libraries have bought have bought the rights to educate, you buy, I don't know what the right terminology is, but basically you buy the right to be able to show it or to provide it to people that have library access. Because it's only educational content.
Well, and it's only 25 years old. It's not like it was filmed in the 50s and it's we don't have a way to share it anymore.
Right.
Or it's,
Yeah. So okay. I am going to email UC Berkeley. This happened right before we started filming. So I'm going to email UC Berkeley. Yeah. I highly doubt they're going to get back to me. Maybe they will. But if they do, I'm gonna figure out a way to watch it. If for any reason, even getting a VHS, I'll literally go down to the freaking thrift store and buy a little box TV or something. I
I
want to
think I
watch this so
have
bad.
a VHS player, so just
I'll just come to
over.
your house. There we
Just
go.
book a quick flight.
So we're going to get a little into who each of these people are, husband and wife. So we'll start with Harry. Harry Tyson Moore was born November 18th, 1905 in Houston, Florida, Swanee County. He grew up in a family that valued education despite the segregation and limited opportunity that was provided to him. He attended the Florida Memorial College, and where he was trained as a teacher. And he believed that education was the weapon that no oppressor could take away.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's a quote from him. His wife, Harriette V. Sims Moore, was born on June 19th, 1902 in West Palm Beach.
Shout out.
Shout out. She became a teacher in 1920, and she was known for her sharp intellect and gentle discipline. She met Harry at a teacher training workshop. They married on December 25th of 1926, and devastatingly, that is the same date that would mark their deaths 25 years. Yeah. So to them,
like the week before this episode comes out.
Yes. So we're coming up on both their anniversary and their death date. So their teaching wasn't just a profession to them, but it was a form of resistance. And it was embodied through this quiet strength that it seems is a through thread here. So they both taught in Brevard County's segregated schools, and they often walked miles to each rural classroom. Harry eventually became the principal of what was then called Titusville Colored School, earning respect from colleagues and students alike. Harriet balanced work, home, and activism, helping him organize quietly behind the scenes. I loved learning about these two because even the title of the documentary, the PBS documentary I was referring to, is Harry T. Moore, Freedom Never Dies, Harry T. Moore. Mm-hmm. And again, this quiet, gentle support from a partner or a wife or a woman, like this hidden labor of women theme was coming up. And I was like, and she killed it the whole way through. Like we're going to highlight here like what her specific contributions were to really significant civil rights movements. So their union was built on shared conviction that education and civic participation could dismantle white supremacy. So they were really in it together.
They were going for it. Yeah.
They really were. And their evening kitchen table organizing sessions would consist of things like typing NAACP correspondence, collecting dues, and writing appeals. Harriet kept the records, led women's organization circles, and supported students directly affected by racial violence. And so a little bit about what they contributed to. In 1937, Moore initiated Florida's first equal pay lawsuit for Black teachers, which was Gilbert versus the Board of Public Instruction. Mm-hmm. So they collaborated with Thurgood Marshall and S.D. McGill of the NAACP Legal Committee. And though it was dismissed on procedural grounds, it catalyzed similar cases statewide. It just kind of created this boom of like, oh, wait, we can do this. And this is the moment. It started the momentum. That's also a really strong through thread is it seems like so much of their actions ignited these kickstarts to these much greater and larger movements that we even know today.
Yeah.
The Moores faced retaliation. They were socially ostracized, and later they even would lose their jobs. But they gained recognition among Florida's Black educators. So Harriet's role, she coordinated fundraising among women and teachers to sustain legal fights. And then she advocated for the invisible labor that I was just speaking about, this invisible labor of Black women who were educators. So part of the impact of this was that Florida became one of the first Southern states to begin adjusting Black teacher salaries towards parity. Yeah. They saw their struggles as moral and not political. So as we're transitioning into the early 1940s to mid 1940s, this is where it really highlights the transformation of isolation into infrastructure. Again, like supporting this, kickstarting and igniting these bigger movements. In 1941, Harry founded the Florida State Conference of NAACP branches. So it was the first such statewide network in the South, period.
Holy cow.
Yeah. He served as executive secretary, unpaid, sending hundreds of letters to coordinate membership drives. And Harriette maintained records, as she did throughout the entire time, handled correspondence, and then she also hosted local meetings in their home. And combined, their efforts grew the NAACP membership in Florida from under 1,000 to more than 10,000 by the mid-1940s.
I thought you were going to say like 2,000,
No,
3,000. 10,000 people?
Yeah, and just in 5 years. Yeah.
2 people did that. That's incredible.
Yes, it's so incredible. So expanding this freedom beyond the classroom, and after, I guess I didn't really get into this, but Smith versus Allwright in 1944 is the case that ended all white primaries. So after that, Moore co-founded the Progressive Voters League, or the PVL. The PVL's slogan was "A voteless citizen is a voiceless citizen."
Catchy.
I know, is that good?
Yeah.
And through door-to-door registrations, they more than doubled Florida's Black voter registration from roughly 50,000 voters to well over 116,000 voters by 1950, making Florida the highest in the South. They distributed voting guides, they tracked candidates' stances, and they pressured officials for accountability.
This is going to sound so stupid, but I'm just sitting here thinking, like, they did all of this, they made all of this impact without social
technology.
media. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
That's so impressive, because you have to think about how much effort went into that, because you can't just reach someone by, tweeting or sending someone a message. Like,
you are going door to door to door to door. You're encouraging other people to do the same. It's incredible. So Harriet's leadership that helped support Harry is that she typed every newsletter and membership list by hand.
Which means on a typewriter, folks.
On a typewriter. She served as a treasurer for multiple drives that they led, and she acted as the logistical backbone for statewide communications when her husband was away traveling.
So cool.
I know. So now we're going to transition over into a little bit more of, advocacy, and we're going to tap into a little bit of the Groveland Four. Do you know about the Groveland Four? The 4 young Black men who were falsely accused of raping a white woman.
Which white woman? Well, no, I mean, because, well, maybe.
We're not going to go deep into it, but the Groveland Four, it is one of many occasions, as you're highlighting. This wasn't an isolated event. This happened many times throughout history. So in Groveland, Florida, 4 young Black men were falsely accused of raping a white woman. And Harry immediately mobilized NAACP lawyers, including Thurgood Marshall. They traveled the state collecting affidavits and testimonies, even while they were under threat. So they publicly called for Sheriff Willis McCall's removal after McCall shot 2 of the men while they were handcuffed, and one of them was killed.
Yes. Okay. Then yes, I do know. Yeah.
Yeah. So his investigation of lynchings and killings placed him under the surveillance and made him a target for the KKK. So Harriet's role along this time is that she helped protect evidence and correspondence at home. So she hid the things that they were investigating. And she provided emotional and logistical support while also maintaining this sense of normalcy for their community. So,
which let's not bypass the fact that in and of itself would have been so scary.
I know.
Because like, you're not some figure that nobody knows. Like, at this point, people know who she is, you know, and especially someone like the KKK, right? Like, they're going to know, we don't like her.
Yeah.
She's a problem. And to be so staunchly dedicated and determined to the point that, I mean, you're putting yourself at risk by continuing to do this. That is so admirable and terrifying and all the things.
Yeah, while also still supporting your community at the same time. So Harry and Harriet were both fired from teaching in 1946 for their activism, losing their livelihood, but they continued their full-time organization work. So they've lost their jobs. They're at significant risk. And they lost their jobs in 1946. And so for the next 6 years, they continued advocating relentlessly. And December 25th of 1951, like I said in the beginning, their 25th wedding anniversary, while they were asleep in their bedroom, a dynamite bomb exploded beneath them from under the floorboards. Harry died that night, and Harriet succumbed to her injuries 9 days later. The murder followed years of death threats and escalating violence from Florida's Klan.
Jesus Christ.
So,
I mean, obviously you set us up at the beginning. Like I knew
Yeah.
that they were going to be murdered, but I
Yeah.
didn't expect it to be via explosives.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, how do we know that the Klan was involved?
Sorry. I know that you. Sorry.
Doesn't take
I don't
a
know.
rocket scientist,
Tell me,
but
Jerry. Is there any proof?
Is there any, evidence? Yeah. So immediately following their murders, there was an investigation that was opened, and 5 residents of Mims, Florida, testified that on July 1951, 2 white men had asked directions to their house. One witness, O.K. Washington, gave detailed descriptions, and when Klan informants in Orange County were shown these descriptions, they identified the 2 men as Klansmen, Tiltman H. Belvin and Earl J. Brooklyn.
I'm very surprised that any of what you just said happened.
Right.
Like I would have expected that it was like, certain people were suspected, but of course the sheriff didn't have an investigation. I mean, I would have.
Oh no, the FBI is involved. We're going to get to that.
I still would not have expected any of that to happen.
Right.
So I think that's pretty incredible that anything was
even done about it.
Yes, instead of like, wow, what a shame. Okay, moving on.
I know. The succession of events here is both surprising and not surprising. So there's moments where I'm like, oh wow, just like how you're saying,
yeah,
that they actually got involved.
They care.
Then later on, we'll.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to be really disappointed in general, but I'm at least in this moment, I'm highlighting that that's a good thing. Something good happened.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So one informant with the FBI claimed that Brooklyn had presented a hand-drawn floor plan of the Moore's house at a Klan meeting and solicited help for quote-unquote doing a few jobs.
Oh, that's so scary.
Yeah, so to clarify, an informant means that the FBI had gotten someone who had either previously been in the Klan or was currently in the Klan, and they're basically a spy. So they're in the Klan and they're working for law enforcement at the same time. So they're getting all of this information from the Klan. So reports show that the Klan was highly active in Florida in that era, obviously, as we've discussed, especially in Brevard County and in Central Florida. The Moore's home in Mims was a region where Klansmen and sympathizers were present, and local law enforcement had often had links to white supremacist structures, as we are not unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
The motive, not super hard to figure out here. Obviously, the Moores were involved heavily in civil rights movements and organizing. That obviously made them a very predominant target for white supremacist violence. And in 2006, the Florida Attorney General's office announced that their Forensics and Historical Review concluded that the bombing was the work of a Central Florida Klan chapter called the Clavern. They named 4 men at that time. By the time we're in 2006 and the state acknowledges that it was an act of racial violence, they were all deceased. And they named them as likely, italicized, perpetrators. Earl J. Brooklyn, Tilman H. Belvin, Joseph Neville Cox, and Edward L. Spivey. 2008, DOJ notice to close file summaries, a federal cold case review, which identified the 10 former members of the Central Florida KKK who may have had pertinent information about the bombing, and narrowed to Brooklyn, Belvin, Cox, and Spivey as the most probable suspects. You have a look on your face, Heather.
Because it's just wild that we're talking about 2006 and 2008. And I mean,
know. And this happened
in the 50s.
In the 50s. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also don't like, I guess it has to be worded in such a way because they never were tried, innocent until proven guilty. But I just hate how much allegedly is sort of implied in all of this, that like, well, maybe they did it, but, we don't want to tarnish the reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there's never any prosecution. And despite multiple investigations, so the FBI first investigated it in 1951 and 1952, and the FDLE investigated in 91 and 92. And then the state investigated it in 05-06, the DOJ cold case review that we just talked about. And no one was ever charged or convicted in the Moore bombing. So there's a lack of smoking gun evidence, right? So investigators repeatedly found circumstantial evidence rather than irrefutable direct proof. So, for example, there was no eyewitnesses who placed a named person at the scene placing the bomb. There was no forensic trace evidence that definitively linked a suspect to the device. And a PBS summary says, although agents were not finding any direct evidence linking Brooklyn or Belvin, they were uncovering a great deal of evidence about other violent incidents.
Yeah, I bet.
So I can only, and again, this is suspect, right? I'm suspecting here that the shit they started finding out was probably not something that they wanted to get further involved in.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting their hands too messy. They're getting into this web, and it's like, oh wait, hold on. You know, we only are the FBI. What power do we have? You know,
honestly.
Yeah. So obviously, all of the key.
And I'm speculating and generalizing, but I'm just going to go ahead and say, I don't think it would be completely unfathomable to think that there was also some macroaggressions in the FBI itself, right? Because I mean, just because they're the FBI and they're investigating what looks like a very obvious hate crime does not mean that they themselves do not harbor hate. So it wouldn't be crazy for me to think that some of them maybe didn't care as much if it was solved or not.
Yeah, and if we keep digging, then what is it going to look like once we have all this that we've uncovered and we haven't done anything about it? So we probably should stop digging.
Yeah, and like, you know, well, yeah.
So as we've stated, all the key suspects here are all dead at this point. So there's no live prosecution or testimony. The DOJ review explicitly states no living suspects could be identified to proceed. Also, a really controversial thing across the spectrum here that I have seen come up in so many different cases, both that I have been witness to and that I have heard about, whether it's in media or other people's experiences, is considering the statute of limitations.
But there is no statute of limitation on murder.
1951. Right. Federal civil rights statutes at the time had limitations that complicated prosecution. Yeah. The DOJ review states that it did not produce any new leads, even if a living subject could be identified. The statute of limitations has expired.
Huh?
Yes. Yeah. A little loophole there.
Okay. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to say back to you what I heard. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Even if investigating a murder, an obvious murder, not like an accidental suspicious death, but clearly a murder, investigators have failed to find enough stuff to investigate by a given time. Too bad, so sad. Time's up.
That's what I read. That's what I understood. I'm looking at the file right here in front of me from the Civil Rights Division.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I know. So the Department of Justice website has this obviously on file, has the case synopsis, has all of the suspects' names listed, and it also describes everything that we've just talked about here. Yeah. So there's just pages and pages of it talking about what they discovered, what they uncovered, what the likelihoods are, the history that contributed to why they would be targeted. An unnamed Klan member who they blacked out called Belvin during the first week of January 1952, asking if Belvin had any more dynamite. Belvin reportedly responded, "No, I used all of it on the last job." He was reportedly known to wear a size 6 shoe. I'm not going to make any comments about that. And this size 6 shoe footprint was found at the scene of the explosion. So, and we can keep reading here, right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that it seems like there was more than just circumstantial evidence, but that was what was said then to give room and space for, because how would they know in later years that there was a size 6 shoe, you know? So
this is just infuriating.
So now we're going to get into a little bit of, well, I guess before we move on to that, I find it interesting how specifically one of them died, but we'll get into that.
Okay.
So some competing motives and complexity here. So while the Klan involvement is leading this theory, the Moors had multiple possible enemies.
Well,
is
yeah.
so like local white power structure, sheriff's offices in Lake County, etc. Investigators noted at the time no evidence linking the Moore bombing to the Groveland case or Sheriff McCall. But the fact of multiple potential motives complicates this narrative.
Does it?
Yeah, right. So, as we've discussed, there are 4 people that are suspected. And as we all know, it's more than these 4 people. Let's be real. It's a whole entire hate
Right.
group,
We're just talking about
group.
who specifically, like,
Who,
boots on the ground
yep,
did it.
Exactly.
Not
so,
who planned and helped and, all that.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, it's so scary that they had a hand-drawn layout of the house, because that does mean they had been in the home.
Yes. Yeah. So not only do we have first-hand account tellings of this, it's very obviously something like bombing speaks in and of itself that it was premeditated. But yes, to your point, to have a whole layout drawn of a house, that's meticulous.
Well, okay, I will say, to be fair, if it was like a small wooden house like you were talking about, and it's maybe more of like a shotgun house, as we would call them, then I mean, perhaps it was just like, they're all laid out the same. I know how they're laid out. But regardless,
for them to know where their bedroom was, they would have had to have scoped out the house, obviously.
Probably. But either way, you said that the dynamite was under the floorboards, right? Or just under the house?
Under the floorboards it says under the floorboards of their bedroom. So I don't know if they like lifted the floorboards or put it under, because if they were to, well, it depends on the foundation of the house.
Yeah, it depends on the house. Because I mean, that like
crawl space
haunted house that I lived in, it had like a canning room almost. You had to kind of like crawl under there, but you could like store your cans and stuff. So it wasn't like necessarily a crawl space, wasn't like a basement, but it was like
somewhere to keep things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it all depends. But if it was a matter of lifting up floorboards, then yikes. Yeah.
Well, too, if you think about it, if you got a house in Florida, there's no basement. Oh,
correct.
Yeah, it's probably if anything, it's probably a lifted house.
Yeah.
So they might have just like crawled up underneath it. So in 1951, between 1951 and 52, the FBI interviews Joseph Cox. He was the Klan leader in the area. And just weeks after this questioning, you want to guess how he died?
Dynamite?
By suicide. Yeah. So
again, is there any suspicion that it wasn't suicide?
Nothing that I've read, but I mean, wouldn't be the first time I've questioned someone dying by suicide that was involved in an investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find it hard pressed that that he became so morally convicted that he needed to
see, and that's more what I'm echoing, right? Is that in some cases I could see someone being freaked out, oh, I'm under suspicion, I can't handle it. But if you're loud and proud enough to be a leader,
he's the leader,
the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't think he's like, woe was me, I have so much regret.
Yeah. Well,
okay, go on.
So it's both Tillman and Tillman Belvin and Earl Brooklyn died of heart attacks in 1952. So again,
wow,
really interesting there. It's crazy. They just
all in the same
dying.
year.
In August. So we couldn't get a specific date. I couldn't find a specific date on when Joseph Cox died by suicide.
Hit me up offline. I'll go to findagrave.com. Find out.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. Well, it was sometime before August of 1952, because that's whenever Belvin and Brooklyn both died of heart attacks.
Both in August?
Both in August. I know.
Okay.
I know. And I started reading about this and I was like, okay, I was like, Googling suspicious. Is this, anybody else think that this is suspicious?
And if not suspicious, paranormal?
Like, ooh, you all died that fast? Interesting.
Okay.
So in the 80s, Edward L. Spy lived until the 80s, so roughly 30 more years, and he gave a deathbed confession that he had done it, and he implicated all the other 3.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So then in 1991, he reopens the case. In 2006 is when the Attorney General concludes that all 4 men, all deceased, were responsible. And then in 2008, the DOJ affirms the findings and closes the case.
It's very interesting. It's, it's neither here nor there, but I am curious what a family can or cannot do if posthumously, like one of their relatives is, I guess they can't be, well, they obviously can't be convicted, but if they're basically linked and said, okay, yep, they definitely killed these people.
Right.
The end. I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I would think that you probably, because you can't, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't defame a dead person. So you wouldn't be able to like sue for defamation. So I don't know. I guess you'd probably just have to be like, wow, I knew grandpa sucked, you know? I don't know.
I have heard of family members advocating for like people who were found to be guilty, or maybe even not guilty, but allegedly. They'll like start things. This organization for people, da da da. And I'm like, shh.
Why don't you guys just go ahead and like not get involved? Yeah.
So some speculated reasons that we've also touched on a little bit for why, right, that there was no indictment. It, just to put it concisely, is that there's lack of physical evidence, institutional complications, suspects' deaths. Obviously, they'd all passed by the time anybody made an uproar about anything. And then the federal reluctance to pursue domestic white terror cases, obviously. So they both left behind a great deal of legacy and a whole lot of love, even beyond their death. Harry and Harriet, their love was a political act, and their deaths galvanized national outrage and became one of the first civil rights martyrdoms of the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
The NAACP named their headquarters the Harry T. Moore Memorial Building.
Wow.
The Harry T. and Harriet Moore Cultural Complex now stands in their MIMS property, preserving their memory and educating future generations. Yeah.
That gave me chill bumps. That's
awesome. Me too. Yeah, so you can go, if you're near Orlando, you can go and see their property and see the memorial that's there. Their work laid the groundwork for the 1950s and 60s civil rights movements, particularly around voting rights, teachers' pay, and legal advocacy. And so today's invitations, it's a couple different things that I thought would be some pretty cool, just like curiosities to reflect on, are how two teachers reshaped the civil rights movements through persistence and not position. It's really important. They were very persistent, consistent, and they did not obtain great positions of power. What does it mean to live ethically in times of injustice, and how love and community can sustain courage?
Love that. Yeah. I feel like that's something that my therapist and I even talked about recently, because it's like, especially just to bring it modern, right? There's so much happening, and sometimes for me, I don't always feel safe being physically somewhere, you know, saying something or protesting something. And so I'm like, how do I get involved in a way where I don't feel afraid of my surroundings? And, you know, just sort of figuring out how you can volunteer locally, how you can volunteer remotely, you know, figuring out what's important to you and how you get into it in a way that feels safe and approachable, but also impactful.
Absolutely. There's a quote that I heard, I believe this is when I was in grad school, is that the person that has their feet on the ground is not the same person who has the microphone at their mouth. It's not the same person who made the flyers, is not the same person who made. So it just highlights, I think there's been so much misconception and construing of what you should and should not do as for anything you believe in. So any kind of advocacy work, you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. It doesn't have to be we all do the same thing. It's actually more harmful if you're, well, that's not true. It's not more harmful necessarily because there's strength in numbers. But if we're all expected to do the same type of advocacy specifically, it's like, oh, wait, that's not communal. It's not like the one person is doing this part and then it supports this part and then supports this part. I think that's how a lot of movements kind of dissolve and fall apart, is that there has been this lack of communal engagement in a way where we're all communicating about, oh, but the person who is handwriting the letters is just as important as the person who has a microphone in their mouth.
Well, and in that same vein, I will say that because we are in a time of social media, it can feel like if you aren't saying something loudly, that you must not be saying anything at all. But let me be very clear and remind everybody listening that it is not just about if or how you are shouting things, but the quiet conversations that you have with your own family members,
Yes.
with your own friends,
Your neighbors.
and it's not, I don't think anybody is responsible for fixing somebody, but it's like if you notice something in a family member and you're like, hey, why'd you say
Just
that? Or
ask
why
a
do you feel that way?
question.
Like,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Or, if you're close enough, that person to be like, that's kind of offensive. Or like, are you aware that what you just said is like kind of problematic? And because you don't, again, if you are comfortable talking to somebody, you should do that and just figure it out and kind of trace it back. And as a mom of a young child, take every opportunity if they make an observation to not bypass it. I mean, even today, this is more like sexist than racist, but my son had like a career day at pre-K, and he did, well, for the longest time, he was going to be Spider-Man when he grew up. And when I finally kind of was like, that's so awesome. And you can definitely be, a superhero, but like, how are you going to make money?
Yeah.
But he decided to be a builder. And when we were on the way to school and he was talking about how one of the girls in his class, maybe she might want to be a gardener because she might want to water flowers, like something in this 4-year-old brain. He's talking about this. But he made the comment about because she's a girl. And I said, what do you mean? I said, you don't think that she could be a builder? And he said, no, I think that, she wants flowers or whatever. And this is so funny because we would never have a conversation like this in the house. I do think that sometimes these weird things are like built and programmed at birth. I don't know where they come from. And so I made sure to just say, like, no job is just for a man or just for a woman. Anyone can do anything. And he was sort of like, still. But still, like, you take that opportunity. And for a little levity here, when I was in pre-K, we had a doctors and nurses kind of career day, and all the little girls were given nurse hats and all the little boys were given stethoscopes. And I threw a motherfucking fit. And to the point that they had to call my parents and say, we do not know what to do. She is very upset. And I was demanding a stethoscope.
That is so.
And my mom had to say, like, this is on us because we have consistently, well, especially mom, has consistently taught her. And again, I'm 3? You don't need a man. You can do anything. You can be anything. You don't have to be a nurse. You can be a doctor. And so when that actually was in my face, I was like, I can be a doctor.
Give me that stethoscope, bitch.
but it wound up that every year thereafter, they let the kids choose.
That is, it's the little stuff the little stuff is just as important. I say little stuff. It's just as important. And the other thing too is like, you don't have to be right. You just have to invite curiosity. There is no like, you asking.
I'm not inviting anybody to fight with anyone.
No, I
don't.
And you know what? There are times where it's like, okay, yeah, actually this was not the right thing to do, or I was wrong, whatever. Curiosity, it never harms anybody or anything. If you feel a little weird, it's just like, why did you say that? Simply asking someone, either out of just like, if you're like being angry. I have asked someone why they said something out of rage. I have not said anything at all out of upsetness. I have asked out of sheer curiosity. And I've also like done and said things that I knew once I said it or did it that it was wrong. I mean, I still think of things sometimes where I was like, man, I didn't like that I did that, or I didn't like I said that, or that felt weird and icky. And sitting with your own discomfort, so hard, but I'll never do it again.
Well, and fully acknowledging your own ignorance.
Yes.
Too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because I know I definitely can look back at things and go, yep, hate that. But it's just so interesting because I think all of these hate groups, whether it's someone as blatant as the KKK or less blatant, it's just this fear that someone that doesn't look like me might get to be as loud as me.
Yeah.
And why does that freak you out? Like, I don't know. You know, nobody should be afraid that someone might be able to do the same thing as them, because that means that what you're doing is probably a problem.
It's just conceptually, isn't it conceptually just so interesting that why would you not want someone to be in the same position as you? And it's like exactly what you're saying. It's like, interesting. So that was today's episode. So I'll give you a little teaser about what's to come next episode. So today we focused on two really significant members that contributed to the first igniting sparks of civil rights movements and voting advocacy for people of color. So next episode, we're going to get into a little bit of how the Ku Klux Klan was born, how it evolved over time. I know. And it has had many different iterations. I did not know this. It changed leadership many times, had endings and then resurrections. And despite these changes over time, the central belief of the Ku Klux Klan has never wavered, and that it is that white people, particularly white Protestants, are inherently superior to all other racial, ethical, and religious groups, and that American society should be organized to preserve and enforce that supposed hierarchy. However, the very first version of the KKK was born from humiliation rituals, nostalgia, and racial fear in the post-Civil War era, and it did not come from an inherent divine calling. With the help of a nationally screened movie called Birth of a Nation. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
I'm very much so looking forward to sharing this with you. This movie was one of the first resurgence of, it contributed to the resurgence of the KKK that later had a huge national boom, and this marked the era when religion became a tool to moralize the violent anti-black impulses of millions of people. The Klan didn't begin as religious; it became religious.
Interesting. Well, hate them, but am excited to learn about the historical facts of it. Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
This is our first time doing a two-parter, so it's kind of like, how do we transition? I don't know.
Yeah, probably we'll just the end.
Yeah.
But no, I think this was a smart way to approach it, because it kind of, we leave in a I can't really say a nice note because something terrible happened, but we leave on the note of like, let's not bypass them and their memory, and jump straight into the horrors.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
We can pause and then go into the horrors.
Yeah, and even in the next episode, it is very much so focused on more of a cultural approach. I don't get into any kind of specifics. I do, however, think that it is important to note the depth and the severity of the violence.
Yes.
While we're towing the line of not contributing to the sensationalized versions of it, and also not re-traumatizing people. But also, this has been something that Heather and I have been this whole time taking into consideration is, okay, how do we acknowledge the importance or the weight or the significance of something while also doing it in a dignified way? And here it's much less about like, okay, it needs to be in a dignified way, and more so like, how do we really hone in on just how intense this is while keeping everybody still here, being able to sit with the discomfort and also learn, just like in an educational and an informed way, about something that is kind of the through thread of a lot of societal contributions in our country.
Yeah, so, like translating how severe it is without being really graphic.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of things kind of miss the mark, is like there's this threshold where it's like you lose everybody. Like when the cancer commercial comes on, people are not, it breaches the human threshold of being able to, right? Like there's some kind of thing in the in between that we're navigating, and we're figuring it out as we go and as we share with y'all. So
well, very good job. I think nice choice, because I can obviously see how we're getting into like culture and belief, and even if that belief is discriminatory, and I think if there were ever a belief system that had an impact on culture, it would definitely be this.
Yes. And
So
this will be like my last note, is that whenever you brought up the OG MLM, this has to do with the KKK.
oh god.
I know. So anyways, we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.